Banjo Dan here with another installment of the Eclectic Banjo. I attended my first ever Blue Ridge Banjo Camp this year, held at the idyllic Brevard Music Center in Brevard, North Carolina. In this video, I'd like to share my thoughts and experiences about the camp. Please take note of the chapters of this video for particular sections of interest. The Blue Ridge Camp is an organization that seeks out celebrity musicians to host a week's worth of learning and growth for aspiring musicians on their respective instruments. They have an annual banjo camp now. They also have a guitar camp, and I believe that they're getting started with a fiddle camp. This is the 5th year of the banjo camp, for which Bela Fleck has been the celebrity musician. For better or worse, his face is on all the merchandise. Along with the professional instruction of Bela Fleck, other camp instructors included Tony Trischka, Kristen Scott Benson, Adam Larrabee, and Greg Litz. All had achieved a professional level understanding of the banjo and their respective spheres of influence, and each provided something different in their education regimen. While I can't remember the exact dates, the application window was open until the first couple months of 2024. Applications were approved or rejected by April. An audition video or videos were required to be submitted with each prospective student's application. Camp administrators asked for a display of proficiency in the 3 main areas of the 3-finger banjo: scrug style, single string, and melodic. There were 100 students accepted this year. A note by camp administrators explained that their application process received a record number of submissions this year, and that it's usually about double the amount of people who are actually accepted. Likely they had around 250 to 300 auditions to review. The camp itself was divided into 5 20-player groups. Each group was comprised of players with an approximation of similar skill levels and designated by a certain wood type: mahogany, maple, walnut, ebony, and birch. I had heard that these wood types were Bela Fleck's preferences in banjo necks, from 1st most liked mahogany to 5th most liked birch. Once my application was approved, I was put into the birch grouping and given access to the Google Drive with useful information about the camp in my group's orchestral part PDF and instructional videos given out by the conductor. After reviewing a talented friend's audition video who was accepted into the highest tier, or mahogany, and comparing it to my own birch audition video submission, I can safely say that birch was a good spot for me. Partial payment was required by a certain date once I was notified of my application's acceptance, and then full payment was due approximately 2 months or so prior to the camp start date. This was the first year that the camp tackled an orchestra piece as the capstone performance, which was arranged and conducted by camp attendee Cassidy Benchess and performed at the Saturday night concert open to the public. The piece was Gershwin's Rhapsody in Blue. It was a workhorse of a composition that nonetheless worked well in the banjo camp format. At performance speed, it took 20 minutes to play through and contained over 500 measures. The piece was divided into 5 parts assigned to each of the 5-tiered wood groups of the camp. All parts were made accessible to camp attendees ahead of time, and instructional videos were released a couple months prior to the camp via a Google Drive link. Birch and ebony had very similar parts that consisted mostly of quarter and eighth notes. However, it was expected by performers to be accountable to timing, dynamics, conductor cues, and specific ways to execute passages. Since I had no prior knowledge of playing in an orchestra, my part in Birch felt very involved to me, and I am glad I did not have a more sophisticated part to play. Walnut's part was similar to Birch's and Ebony's, but seemed to involve longer passages, more difficult timing, and more intricate chordal structures. Maple's and Mahogany's parts were by far the most sophisticated. They involved long 16th note runs and required the greatest facility to execute properly. There were talented musicians in all tiers though. A talent show finalist was in Ebony, for instance, and she performed by herself on stage at the Saturday night concert. I was in Birch, and a review of my classical pieces on my channel may show at least a passing competency on the banjo. How camp administrators rated competency levels through audition videos remains a mystery, but I think that they were fairly accurate with me at least. As a banjo student, I was not acquainted with any of the instructors prior to camp, although I had heard of all of them by reputation. As previously stated, the camp was divided into 5 loosely tiered groups of approximately 20 banjo players each. The really skilled players were in Mahogany and Maple, for instance. Instruction was likely tailored to each group, so I can only speak for Birch in terms of the class offerings. The camp was solely focused on 3-finger banjo playing, with the exception of bassist player Mark Schatz, who taught a single clawhammer banjo class open to everyone. Each day started with an hour with Bela, in which he noodled freeform on his banjo, explored noodled concepts afterwards, and answered pre-submitted questions. Following this block were classes, rehearsal of the 100-plus banjo piece, free play, and time to jam with others. Each of the 5 primary instructors had 2 75-minute lesson blocks with each of the 5 groups of players over the course of the 4 days of camp. Of the 5 primary instructors, Bela Fleck, Tony Trischka, Kristen Scott Benson, Adam Larrabee, and Greg Litzt, only one of them, Kristen Scott Benson, felt like she had a truly bluegrass banjo leaning in her instruction. In Birch, and likely for the other groups, Kristen focused her instruction strictly on bluegrass material. We learned about backup playing methodology as well as the role of the banjo player in a band, including the kickoff, rolling backup, second break, and considerations to end the song. Kristen went into intricate detail with these topics. Adam Larrabee introduced various songs from different genres with a focus on musical composition. We learned about chordal progressions, basic music theory, and fretboard familiarity. Greg Litzt presented a different set of music than Adam and Kristen. His focus was the most classical in nature. A lot of the instruction was about learning simple melodies and playing them together at different tempos as a group. Tony Trischka offered up a back-to-basics perspective in his instruction, working with a metronome, executing clean pull-offs and hammer-ons, a focus on tone and clarity. There was a certain amount of Q&A involved as well. To top it off though, Tony related several stories and anecdotes of Earl Scruggs and other notable bluegrass legends that he had come across over the years. Bela's classes were the least regimented of the bunch. Like Tony, he also related timeless stories from his travels and experiences though. We learned about outside-of-the-box ways of pursuing music on the banjo in Bela's class. He also showed us examples of using art to explore musical concepts on the banjo, also learning about Indian music to broaden one's creativity. Very random things and all very worth it. Every evening held an event followed by time for players to jam together. Each event was essentially preparation for Saturday night's concert. Tuesday night was geared to welcoming students, and the instructors performed some, if I remember correctly. Wednesday night, the instructors played more of their pieces for the Saturday night concert. Thursday night held a talent show in which students competed to be chosen as concert finalists. Friday's event was a rehearsal for the orchestral arrangement of the camp. Saturday evening's event was the concert put on for the public that comprised of the talent show finalists, the instructors' pieces, and the orchestral arrangement for 100 plus banjos, Rhapsody in Blue. The camp was held at the Brevard Music Center, close to downtown Brevard in North Carolina. It was essentially a college campus with dorms and classroom facilities, administrative buildings, manicured landscapes, and parking lots. The camp ran from check-in day of a Tuesday to a full class schedule Wednesday through Saturday and a checkout day on Sunday. During the check-in process, I was given camp swag, a folder with the camp schedule, a site map, and a laminated name tag lanyard. My name tag had my name, group wood type, which was birch, and the tag itself had the appearance of birch wood, which I thought was a nice touch. Deering and a couple other banjo vendors were there selling banjos throughout the camp as well. All of the classes were held in open-air buildings or tents. Meals were included in the price of camp admission, and the food was decent. Lunch and dinner offered a meat and a vegetable pairing, as well as a vegan meat and a vegetable pairing. There was also a salad bar and a desserts bar. There was a musical instrument closet in the cafeteria that players dropped off their banjos in before dining. It felt fairly secure. Although I didn't stay on site for lodging, I believe linens and towels were provided for sleepers. Banjos needed to be carried around everywhere. Shoulder straps, backpack cases, or carts to carry the cases around in is highly recommended. Camp staff were available with golf carts to drive players around upon request, though. No beginner banjo player was accepted into the camp. If you aren't proficient in G major chord shapes, or you don't even know what those are, playing in rhythm, playing scrugs, single string, and melodic arrangements, and the like, you will likely not be accepted. Work on any lesson material given out ahead of time before arriving. If they do another orchestra piece next year, then learn your part as much as possible. Memorizing is best. The following is a list of things I would make sure to have on hand for next year. A backpack banjo case for walking around campus in. Always having an umbrella with me, as it did rain quite a bit. A pencil for marking up handouts. A camera or video recording device, such as your smartphone. A business card with my name, contact info. That I will reach out to the camp staff about. For the sake of completeness, though, I have included these things in my review as well. Saturday night concert programs for the students available in Thomas Hall, as well as which seats they've been assigned to sit in for the concert. The coordination of the Saturday night concert was hectic, to say the least. An introduction to jamming lesson block that wasn't at the very end of each day. A shameless self-promotion bulletin board where people could post their business cards or personal information to. Better control over the resident wildlife. A raccoon literally peed on me from the rafters while I was watching the Tuesday night performance. Camp staff said that they were cognizant of the raccoon, but apparently it never peed on anyone. The ducks close to the pond were also super aggressive. They just waddled up and quacked right next to people. Plus there was duck poop everywhere around the picnic tables and park benches. It was pretty gross. The desserts area of the cafeteria was always out and available. I am sure some people loved it, but the temptation to eat a dessert after every meal was a bit overwhelming as the camp progressed. Vegan meals more often than not involved some type of imitation meat. I would have much rather eaten something that wasn't trying to be a carnivore dish. Overall, I am quite happy that I attended the Blue Ridge Banjo Camp and hope to go again next year. I met some giants in the banjo world, such as Bela Fleck and Tony Trischka, learned a ton of stuff, and met some amazing people, each with their own interpretations of the banjo. Finally, I took part in my very first orchestra, and that is a story that I'll hold on to for the rest of my life. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you next time at the Eclectic Banjo.